Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode, my doppelganger returns. This is Andrew's truck that I had tuned before, where he had not as much fuel as he does now, but he has a 6-liter billet 7875, similar to the Faller style manifold, 480E, but he has a lockup Circle D converter, and he has an Explorer rear. He has two 10s. He's running the same computer, pretty much same similar stuff, other than he has a Trailblazer SS intake and the China throttle body I have that I haven't even installed yet. So we get those results today too. All in all, I was really excited to tune a truck with air conditioning and everything if mine was done quote-unquote the right way, and lean on this turbo as hard as I can with no limits with the lockup converter. Something else I'd like to add is these first couple pulls are on straight Wawa 92 pump fuel, no E85. So we did the initial tuning on pump gas to see what it would get away with, and then we converted over to E by pumping out the gas and dumping in the E and going from there. Alright, on that first hit, we made 610 horsepower on approximately 17 pounds average, and it was really fat. It made 610 horsepower to the tire. So we did some trimming, and here we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after repeated pulls, a little bit of testing, a little bit of tuning, we settled for a measly 690 horsepower on pump fuel. It had about 8 degrees of timing, approximately 17 pounds of boost on average, and sometimes you just have to settle for that 700 tire through an auto. Not always the best, but that's what we're going to work with today. Would you all just take a moment and listen to how beautiful this YouTube royalty-free audio is? Man, it's really something. Alright, a lot of significant things happened with this vehicle. Even after these dyno pulls, I have to go over a bunch, so right now we're going straight for the last pull. We ended up with 22 pounds of boost, 13 degrees of timing on E75, and made 821 to the tire. Okay, one of the big ones I want to talk about today is Andrew had originally installed a regular Gen 3 intake on this car. Now it has a Trailblazer SS intake with the Chinese throttle body. Pretty much exactly what I'm going to test. So we got these results a little early, and we're going to see if mine can back it up. Anyway, it picked up approximately 30 rear wheel everywhere on the same amount of boost and timing, and the tune-up almost identical. Made 30 extra horsepower at the 660 horsepower range. The intake swap netted 690 horsepower. So that's an interesting fact. Awesome to see. I would love to see what it does on my combination also, being so similar. If we can repeat those results back to back, that would be awesome, obviously. As we pretty much already knew from the internet and many other tests, the Trailblazer SS intake, or the NNBS intake, is a stellar performer, but it's nice to see the results back up on that schmedium boost level. The next thing I wanted to go over was just how awesome these two 10s perform. Even a less than ideal situation is where they are both feeding a half-inch outlet, but necking down frequently to 3/8 or smaller because they're going into a $30 Chinese regulator. Nothing against it. I'm just saying it's 3/8 inch instead of half inch internally. And it is going into the stock rail, so that is fairly small at spots also. Not ideal. Obviously, if you had a 1/2 inch feed feeding 2 1/2 inch rails and a 1/2 inch regulator, you would be getting more fuel volume, but it's neat to see. This air fuel is decent. It's a high 10, almost an 11.0, and then what I always see with this camshaft, the sloppy stage 2, is about 61 to 6300 it noses on VE. It just quits making power and starts tanking on fuel. So you see the fuel, roll out of it here, but about 6600, it's at a 1030, a low 10. That's splitting hairs. We tried bumping it to an 11.0, did not see a power gain, so it wasn't worthwhile. Obviously, you're working with an average here, so that is the average of all 8 cylinders you have to keep in mind. Keeping it safe and getting the same power is fine with me. And you can see it's only at 62% of the injector on 75%, 73.8 alcohol. It was mostly 75 all day. Fuel, this is EGR, he actually had hooked up as fuel pressure, and fuel tank pressure is actually exhaust back pressure. Now I don't have the math that converts them, but his fuel pressure was like 44 static, and then it would come up to, you know, that's 68, 66, 68. But you can see here, fuel pressure comes up and stays up, doesn't really nosedive, so that's nice. And the other interesting thing was back pressure on 22 pounds of boost was 52 psi of back pressure, so the turbo is definitely done. But again, he likes the flexibility and immediate response of the smaller turbo. He could put a bigger turbo on and make 1,000 horsepower, but realistically 400 or 500 in these trucks is plenty to do batshit crazy things. So just wanted to share that. Pretty awesome results.